And welcome to the Vonu Podcast, the podcast making you invulnerable to coercion. I'm Shane and...
I'm Jason.
All right, since government's the primary coercion upon individuals, this podcast, everything found on the website, is covered by BIPCOT, no government license, so as reuse and modification to anyone except for governments and the bludgies thereof. You can learn more at bipcot.org. So today's special live episode is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Vonu. Again, audibletrial.com/Vonu. And I would recommend you pick up the Going Mobile audiobook, an incredible Vonuan Van Nomad zine narrated by yours truly. So Jason, welcome back, to the podcast, man. It's been a couple weeks since we've really recorded anything. So what's new? How are things going? I guess sans all the frustrations of actually getting on the air today.
Oh, it was a lot of frustration getting on the air tonight. They're doing construction near me and new housing developments, and we got internet issues for the last couple days, and it's hot. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I was telling you before we started, the last few times I've tried to do this, whether it was with you for TVP or the last episode with the Melza Hayes, the live stream, it's always something on my end. If it's my computer restarting and having to, I guess, redo something or whatever it turns out to be, it seemed to always be on my end. But so I guess I'm kind of happy that it wasn't me this time. So I understand your frustration and things not really working for you. So yeah, I definitely understand that. So I guess what else is new, man?
Nothing. I haven't. I've just been doing my thing, and yeah, nothing new to report. Nothing fun happening.
Well, that's unfortunate. I've got a few things myself. So I start training for my new work from home job in 5 days. I set my own hours and only have to work 32 hours a week. So like this, I had another job opportunity. It'd been 40 hours, but with this one, if I've got a lot going on with audio publications or something like that, I can work just 32 hours. So that's really nice to have that flexibility. And like I've said in previous podcasts, I think the idea here is to turn audio publication into a profitable venture where I can do that basically full time, but not there yet. So I gotta go to a servile society job, but I don't actually have to physically be there. I can be in the comfort of my own home. So that's certainly a benefit. Not having to deal with all of those city psychological pressures, and plus, I guess regardless of the two job opportunities I had, neither of them would have required me to drive into downtown Austin. But still, if I can save 10 minutes commuting every day, I mean that does add up. So,
it adds up a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And that other job was literally right down the road, like literally 5 minutes. But working from home is going to be incredible. And plus, I mean, a lot of times, like when I get home from work, I'd work on Vonu or LUA or something like that, and I just wouldn't have time to make food. So my food bills went up quite a bit when I have to actually go places. So I mean, it's going to be good. I think it's going to work out well. So. Yeah, that would be.
It should work out well. Not just like not having to commute and not having to drive past those fast food places and all that other stuff, but the burnout. Like a lot of people when in these corporate jobs, these office jobs, these 40+ hour a week jobs, the mundane routine, right? You wake up, you get dressed, you got to put on a suit and tie, you got to put on your monkey suit as Jeremy calls it. And then get in your car and sit in traffic to go to a place you don't like, to do a job you hate, in order to afford the things that you do when you're like 4 hours between work and bed. So being able to work from home, it's a lot different because you don't have all that mundane task. You don't have that commute. You don't have the traffic. And you will save money by not driving past those fast food places and not having all that advertising bombard you.
Right. Yeah, that's certainly the idea, and I don't think a lot of people in the servile society take all those things into account. All of the commuting, the waiting, the like all of those things. The time adds up, and I mean, I don't have any evidence on hand right now, but I think a case could be made that there's a lot of factors at play here, but I guess with all of the servile society stuff, like all of the the cereal state, as Jamin mentioned, Jamin called it the last interview I had with him, all the processed foods, and with all of the stress from these, I guess, Generally, I mean, miserable lifestyles. I mean, you look at the depression rates in society, and obviously you can't really look at the antidepressant rates because you can say you have a bad day and go in there getting antidepressants. So antidepressant rates may not be an accurate gauge of that, but I don't know. Like there's I don't know. It's certainly the servile society has something to do with it, and yeah, not having to deal with that on a daily basis will be really, really, really nice. So. Yeah, that's the first thing, and I guess to get to some social activities that I finally went out and did things. I went to my first metal show here in Austin on Sunday, and I must say the Austin metal scene is incredible, and that's something I didn't really factor in either. I didn't realize that there would be a lot more contracting and freelancing and work from home jobs here, but I also didn't think about the fact that Austin is known for entertainment. And there's a huge metal scene here, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, Sunday was a really, really awesome show. Good time. It was good to get back into a mosh pit. It's been a couple of years. It's been a couple of years. Some consensual violence. Yeah, it was a good little release. And I guess go ahead.
Any new bruises to brag about?
Not really, no.
That's
no.
weak.
Yeah, I know. I didn't. I mean, I had to drive this time. Typically, when I go to metal shows, my brother would drive, and I could just get drunk and mosh, and I didn't care about getting hurt. And I really didn't care about getting hurt this time, but I was a little more cautious than I would have been. So, whatever. But there's plenty of opportunities. I told my brother that there's like 8 shows I wanted to go to in the next month. So this might actually, one of the reasons for moving here was to speed up my path to financial independence, so I could be a van nomad. Well, it might actually be difficult. I'll have to exercise some self-control, I guess is another way to put it. But yeah, and then actually
those metal tickets aren't free, huh?
They're cheap. I mean, they're not like, I mean, they're not expensive, like $20 a pop. But if you go to 4 of those a month, I mean, it adds much, but I mean, it definitely adds up. It definitely adds up. And then on Monday, I went to a volunteerist meetup here in Austin. So yeah, met up with 7 or 8 voluntarists. No political crusading was discussed, which is nice because you never really know, unfortunately. But yeah, there's a lot of talk about crypto anarchism and obviously just a lot of talk outside of anarchism. But yeah, it was nice. It was nice to actually. Mm-hmm. And they meet every Monday. So and there's about 40 other meetup groups.
Oh, nice.
Whether blockchain or Bitcoin or voluntarist or whatever. I mean, I could pretty much go to a meetup every single night if I wanted to, but I don't want to do that. But I do want to go to some of those blockchain ones. So that sounds interesting.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, I don't have those here. I don't have them. No. I can go to an Antifa meeting.
Hey,
there's not many voluntarist meetings.
Really? So you could actually go to an Antifa meeting?
Yeah, they meet at the library. The library's like half a mile from me. They meet at the public library.
Really? Huh? Have you ever considered going there and checking it out?
No.
No. I probably wouldn't either. I was just curious. It might be interesting, or it might just be awful. I don't know.
Go people watching.
Yeah. Go watch them in the wild. But yeah, and I guess the last thing is yesterday I actually went and had lunch with Nima Vedati, who's a freedom fiend. He lives here, so I mean, yeah, I've been all over the place with a bunch of different people, so it's been good. I could do that in the communist state of Illinois. It was all digital, and the only time I'd get to see anarchists is basically if I take a special trip to Chicago once a year, or if I went up to the Midwest Peace and Liberty Fest. So it's been really awesome. And as far as strategic relocation, since we're here in the Vonu Podcast and all, that's I see that as that alone, obviously, as long as you're not moving somewhere where the cost of living is ridiculously expensive or something like that. But
like here in California,
right. But strategically relocating somewhere for to be around like-minded people, I think is a really positive thing. For the psyche, not being so isolated, I think it's a good thing to consider. But obviously there are a lot of other factors involved too. Even if there's a good, even if there was a good anarchist community there in Southern California or something, it might still not be wise for a Vonuan to move out there. Maybe not, if you know what I mean.
Yes, it's California. I mean, people get. I don't want to knock California too much because it's not really California. It's parts of California. It's California. It's the San Francisco Bay Area. It's the LA area. The majority of California is pretty conservative, and some parts of it, when you get up into Humboldt and Trinity County up there, they can be pretty libertarian.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. But it's the population. It's the same thing with Oregon. It's like the Eugene, Portland area controls the rest of the state. Seattle controls the rest of Washington. We're just outnumbered.
Yeah,
bastards.
Right. So I guess there are little pockets of like-minded people here and there. So I guess that's good. That's definitely good. That's definitely good. So I guess should we get on with it here?
Yeah, let's get on with it.
Yeah. It's been about 10 minutes. I don't want to keep the good people waiting. I don't even know how many people are watching.
As long as my internet holds out, I'm good. I don't know.
Very good. Okay, so back to my document here. So something I still come across occasionally on Fascist Book and in conversations elsewhere is that the individual question is interested in Vonu, but doesn't want to withdraw from the servile society or do things alone. For those who don't listen to most episodes of the Vonu podcast, I can understand why people may come to those conclusions, especially if their first or only introduction is Rayo's first book, Vonu: The Search for Personal Freedom. Now, he does discuss other freedom strategies, but the focus predominantly is kind of on what he did, and that makes sense. That makes complete sense. But these assumptions that you have to withdraw from the servile society or you have to do things alone, they're just simply not true. Vonu does not require one to withdraw 100% from the servile society, nor does Vonu imply isolation. So on today's live episode, we'll be dispelling some myths, hopefully refocusing Vonu to appeal to more folks. Although when we're going to try to make Vonu more appealing to folks, we're not going to dilute the message like the collective movementists do. And then we'll also revisit the confusion by many political crusaders that Vonu and prepping, survivalism are synonymous terms and or strategies. So we've talked about that before on various episodes, but I still see that come up, man. I still kind of see it come up. It's as I said, the assumption that Vonu means to withdraw and go live in a Paleolithic in the Siskiyou National Forest. I mean, that's not. It's far more expansive than that. So I guess anything right now before we kind of get into I guess the categories we have for this evening.
No, I think everything will come out. Everything I want to say will come out as we're talking.
Okay. Very good. And as always, looks like we don't really might have a couple of viewers, but please feel free to leave any questions or comments in the YouTube or DLive chats. Now, I did advertise this on Fascist Book, but apparently they don't let you stream, like the Fascist Book, terms of service and policy bullshit. They don't let you stream to multiple places. So there might be a way to do it, but we're already behind from technical difficulties, so I didn't want to screw with it too much. But we're on YouTube and DLive right now. If you have seen it, go ahead and go upvote that if you could. Certainly appreciate it. But questions, comments, anything like that, I'd love to get any of those addressed. So the first category here is Vonu does not equal Rayo, and vice versa. So Rayo and Roberto were I guess two of the most prolific, if that's even a word you can describe Rayo as, prolific. But they were I guess the most prolific Vonuans as far as we know that were out there. So they made some they made a lot of contributions. They were definitely some of the more vocal hardcore ones. But they were kind of the more vocal ones, at least with the publications and kind of the more widely circulated. But at the same time, just as agorism does not equal Sam Konkin. Yeah, he largely developed it, but there are a lot of folks kind of doing little alterations upon agorism, I guess you could say. So yeah, Vonu does not equal Rayo or Roberta. They chose their own Vonu path, but as he said, Vonu is yours for the making. So. Yes, we talk about Rayo. I mean, at least in Season 1 and Season 2, we talked about Rayo a lot. In Season 3, he comes up less because we're more so developing the strategy. But yeah, Vonu does not equal Rayo. He was one of the folks that largely developed it, and he's basically the only publications we have are his publications. So it might seem that way, but there were other Vonuans out there. There were other Vonuans out there doing different lifestyle changes and such. There's a lot of possibilities out there, and again, Vonu is yours for the making. It's very much an individualistic sort of path and lifestyle change. Not everyone wants to go live in the wilderness. I don't really want to pursue the same path Rayo did. But, we can still be Vonuans without following Rayo and Roberta's path. This isn't some centrally planned dictate where we have to mirror everything that they did to be a Vonuan. It's not like that at all. What do you got? Oh,
absolutely. There is no stepping stone. There is no one path, right? There is no like A, B, C, D, E, F, G plan to be Vonu, right? To be free, to live a Vonuan lifestyle. And it is entirely individualistic, and there are a lot of spokes on that wheel. You don't have to go live in a tent. You don't have to live on a sailboat. You don't have to live in a van. You could do combinations of them. You can do none of them. You can do intentional communities. You can do some second realm stuff and have some underground apartment somewhere, and that would be Vonu, because you're limiting your exposure to coercion. So it again, as you said, it is entirely individualistic. What you necessarily want to do is not what I necessarily want to do, and your path is not my path, and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
I can't ride your your coattails to van nomadism. I can't move to Austin. I can't get the same kind of job you did. I can't follow your path, because again, that I don't want to live in a van.
Yeah, thankfully not, 'cause you'd be poor. You'd
That
be poor.
that's not my that's not my path. Just as it's not somebody else's path. Jamie Baconic, who you've had on the show several times, he has a different path, right? He has a different idea of Vonu, and he has different ways about limiting his coercion through his ghost pads and things like that. Just as other people, they go homestead, and try to limit their vulnerability that way. Not everybody has to go live in a van, and then not everybody has to go live in a polyethylene A tent in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
90% of the population would not survive a winter in a polyethylene A tent in the middle of nowhere.
Right,
So-
right, and I'm glad you brought up combinations, because I kind of did this for 10 days, and I wouldn't mind doing it for a month or two. I mean, it's a really awesome time. Like during the warmer parts where you don't need as much gear, where it's not as hard to survive. 2 months of like wilderness Vonu, like that would be really, and it would be wilderness Vonu, but that doesn't mean that you're completely isolated or withdrawn. It means that you can still do live streams and such. I mean, technology's where it is. It's at a point today where you can still kind of, you don't have to be, you don't have to live in isolation. But I could see, wilderness Vonu, someone doing wilderness Vonu for like 1 to 2 months out of the year, and then van nomadism for 4 or 5 months, and then maybe. I don't know, maybe they, rent out a room from a buddy while they're working in a servile society, like in Vonuing in cities or something. Like, there's so many different combinations to this. And I did go through some possible some case studies in my book, Vonu Strategy for Self-Liberation. Stole that idea, the case studies from Adam Cash. He had his was some underground economy people, and he'd bring up hypothetical examples of how they got started in the underground economy, and what they do, how they make money, and all that sort of stuff. So I figured I'd go ahead and mirror that, because even if they're hypothetical examples, they're still there. And plus, we've had Carl on. We've had some real world examples of these sorts of things, anyways. So yes, the point is Vonu does not equal Rayo. That's the point. We don't have to do the same thing that Rayo did, thank God. For a lot of reasons, thank God. But yeah.
Yeah, there's another Vonu freedom strategy that you've actually talked about before, about wanting to do, and I'm going to go ahead and coin the phrase Paz hopping. Right?
Yeah.
Or Taz hopping, temporary autonomous zones, and hopping from Freedom Festival to cryptocurrency, and to bounce around those, like if that is your Vonu strategy, right? If that is what you want to do, that's an entirely possible thing.
Yeah.
There are enough of those, and if you throw in like RTR and Jackalope and
a couple other smaller van nomad meetups.
Yeah. There's a Freedom Festival in Virginia pretty soon, put on by Cal Molinet and Liberated RVA, and and New Hampshire has several of them, and they have the hippie festivals. I can't remember what they're called up there. So yeah, you could theoretically be a Taz hopper and Freedom Festival to cryptocurrency, meet up, and
yes, and that is something, as Rayo said, there are some Vonu strategies haven't even been conceived of yet. that's one that is very much a possibility now. And Taz is temporary autonomous zones for those who aren't sure. I mean, it could be Taz and Paz hopping too, like permaculture farms. You know, hopefully, at some point in the future, it'd be awesome to have like 6 or 7 permaculture farms that can that are advertised as Paz's. Come buy your food from a fellow Vonuan rather than shopping at some mega corporation or something like that. But yeah, just traveling around and having safe, free places that you can stay at. That's certainly a huge development. And I guess it's not completely there yet with the Taz's. Yeah, for sure, you could be a van nomad and just travel around to the different festivals easily. Now for the Paz's though, that's not fully developed yet, but hopefully sometime in the very near future.
And before people say, oh, you couldn't do Freedom Festival to Freedom Festival, you couldn't be a Taz hopper. People did it all the time in the 60s and 70s. They were called deadheads. They followed bands around, remember? Followed an entire tour, living in the van. How is that really any different?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, there are a lot of possibilities for making money that way too. Like if I had a Freedom Festival to go to like twice a month, then I'd just sell merch. I could probably make most of my money, just selling merch. And that doesn't seem to be too difficult at all.
And you don't even have to limit yourself to selling merch. You can sell physical labor, right? You can help set up and break down, as you guys did before Midwest Beach Liberty Fest this year. You guys were moving tables or whatever. And with the advent of technology and the cryptocurrency market, you can be a penny coin speculator and make some money that way, or you can get, what's the website that you use for the temporary jobs?
Oh yeah, there's Upwork and Freelancer, and there's also some Bitcoin ones too. But the Bitcoin ones are mostly coding and development. So we've definitely talked about that. There are a lot of ways to make money on the road, and yeah, a lot that and if we were to I guess disregard technology completely and just mirror what Ray and Roberta did, it would be a lot. It'd be a lot more difficult to pursue Vonu. Ray was, I think, 36 when he started this entire journey, and he was an engineer. So he already made decent money and was able to do this, and he also could do contract work and such. I'm not an engineer, I can't do that. So he already kind of had his niche, I guess, figured out. But yeah, for us Vonuans with I guess different sets of skills, gotta do things a little differently here. But
I would argue that every person has a marketable skill.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just finding the market for it.
Yep, that is it's definitely true. So I guess move on to this next category here. Vonu does not equal 100% withdrawal from the servile society. Now, I include the quote from Rayo whenever he decided to, I guess, withdraw from society. And the quote of, the excerpt from a letter on February 14th, 1974, when he said, quote, "My thinking has undergone major changes in the last several months on interfacing, alternate economics, interrelations in general. I, too, am becoming very dubious as to the value of all libertarian club involvement. We do not intend to use the libertarian club in the future as an avenue for gaining non-anonymous friends or associates," end quote. And no one ever really heard from him again. As far as we know, no one, unless he wrote under different pen names or something along those lines. But him and Roberta basically withdrew from society. The last we know is the van nomadism, wilderness Vonu, and then they took it to the next step, and they were investigating troglodyte dwellings, so living underground.
Yeah.
So that's
caves
a little radical.
Whatnot,
that's a little radical. Probably out there in Cave Junction, right?
There are a lot of caves in that part of Oregon. That's the southern part of Oregon on Highway 199 as it comes east out of California and north into Oregon. It's called Cave Junction for a reason. There are a lot of caves there. There are a lot of caves to the east of that, Modoc County, Northern California, southern Oregon. Yeah, there's a lot of lava tubes and caves up there.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that's kind of my dream is whenever I get my van, probably after I do just a little traveling to Colorado and such, once I have the money, the first place I'm going is Siskiyou National Forest, because in that one episode that I think was one of the first ones that we did together, where you filled in as a guest co-host, but where we kind of pinpointed exactly where he was, or kind of a rough area. So yeah, that's gonna be pretty awesome. So yes,
it's pretty isolated too.
that's what Ray was looking for sure. So to reiterate, Vonu does not equal 100% withdrawal from the Servile Society, and the biggest argument against this, this point was actually what sparked this episode idea, because again, I see this when people are newly introduced to Vonu and such, I see it, but there was just one specific instance, but. Yeah, import-export is a great argument against that. Import-export is utilizing the Servile Society's open but not free trading centers will deny them access to your Vonu home base. So the idea is to I guess export your labor and products back to the Servile Society and import goods and resources back to your Vonu home base. Because quite frankly, especially when Ray and Roberto were doing this in such isolation, I guess you could say, they couldn't manufacture everything that they needed, and nor would it have been, a very wise thing for them to try to do. There's one example in Vonu Book 2 where Jim Stump criticized Ray about this. But Ray, City Gym, New York, urban New York gym. Jim criticized Rayo. Rayo got a crack in his windshield, and Jim criticized him for going and getting it replaced in the Servile Society. It's like, what is he going to do? Manufacture his own damn glass? No. I mean, could he do it? Maybe he could. I don't know. But if he could go pick one up for a few $100s or whatever it would be at that time in 1970 or whenever it was. Yeah, I mean, exactly. So, and Ray also did say that Vonu does not equal. Vonu is not self-sufficiency per se. Being self-sufficient as you can is a good thing, but a lot of times it's not worth the time, or the time and the effort that goes into learning how to do something. For example, if my computer broke, sure, I could probably spend a lot of time, like the next 5 or 10 years, learning all the components, how they work, how to manufacture every single one of them. But that wouldn't help me if I need my computer fixed right now. So I'd go to the Servile Society and buy a new computer. Makes sense.
Yeah. Additionally, learning to use the computer. Yes, it is a tremendously invaluable skill, because you have the knowledge now and you can repair it in the future. But the time that you take to learn about your computer and learn how to make the components and learn all that stuff, that is time taken away from other activities. So it's a cost benefit analysis situation. It becomes an economic situation, economics of time, and labor.
Right.
Is the labor of learning, is the economics of learning greater than the economic and the benefit of just going and buying a new one or going and buying new parts? So that's what you have to find the balance, and I think that's what it ultimately comes down to with this situation is economics of movement, economics of time is it's easier on you economically and time wise to just buy the parts or to just buy a new computer than it is to spend all that time learning and then repair it.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and survivalism, we call that wasting calories. Is it worth the calories to do X instead of do Y?
Yeah.
You got to find that balance.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
In some situations it is worth it. It is absolutely worth it in some situations, but the vast majority of the time, no.
Yeah. So import-export automatically requires some interaction with the Servile Society. Now it's not it kind of just depends upon what you want to do. It's all about being as invulnerable to coercion as possible. So yeah, maybe you'll go to a bar sometime and talk to some folks in the Servile Society. Maybe you'll still have the energy and the desire to do that. Rayo didn't. I don't go to the bar much because I don't really enjoy it all that much. But you may go and socialize and interact with folks in the Servile Society, and that's perfectly fine, right? I mean, you do not have to withdraw.
Even Rayo did that. He took trips down to Southern California, right? He went. He had friends that he visited. He talked about babysitting. He talked about going into town and having to interact with people in town. So he also ordered bulk food, right? You have to interact with people in order to get that. They're not going to, drop it off at, XY coordinates.
Yeah.
So you do have to interact. And again, with technology and the way that information flows now, you would be a fool to try and do it without any action in survival society, without talking to people, without any of that, because
you'd basically be forced to live a primitive lifestyle.
Yes, you have a very primitive lifestyle, and not only a very primitive lifestyle, but again, it would be a very lonely lifestyle, because human interaction is in our nature. The laws of three, right? You go 3 minutes without air, 3 hours of exposure, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. Well, if you continue that, 3 months without interaction, like they say that's the limit. Once you're isolated for 3 months, then your mind starts to break down, and you start to imagine things, and so you need that companionship in order to literally to stay sane.
Right, and that's not saying go and have interaction with everyone in the servile society. There are going to be many relationships that make you far more vulnerable to coercion. Like I wouldn't recommend having a bludgy as a friend, or just an ardent statist who would call the cops on you for any minuscule thing like smoking a joint or whatever it turns out to be. So that we're not making the argument that obviously that's not the argument.
No, but having a polite interaction with the post office lady, or the lady at the grocery store, or the guy at the hardware store when you go to get parts and pieces on whatever, that doesn't hurt you. That's not necessarily going to expose you to coercion. So it's not going to negatively affect you to go and be a human. Right. I mean, it's in your nature.
Right. Yeah. And to that point, and I put this in the notes because it's an important one. The question isn't whether or not you're going to work or interact with others. The question is who are you going to work and interact with? That's the big question.
Quality over quantity.
Yep. Exactly. So I guess the other point here, and it might, I guess it could be relevant. It might not. Like I guess it could be relevant in some circumstances. But intentional communities are an argument against this. Mobile or stationary. You can work with, obviously, intentional communities require a group to get together and pursue a project, whether it's a permaculture farm or a mobile a floating permanent voluntary society like a minimal sailboating sort of thing. Whatever it turns out to be, that requires working with others if that's your goal. But again, it's just the quality of people that you work with. And as Vonuans, the numbers, first off, the people that would be interested in pursuing these lifestyles is already small. But then as a Vonuan, what you have to take into consideration, the number of people narrows quite substantially. And that's not saying you can't work with people that don't call themselves Vonuans. It's about their actions, not necessarily what label even if they've never heard of Vonu. Kind of like Carl and Jala, right, from Australia. They're just terrific people. Mm-hmm. And they weren't really familiar with Vonu, but they were already living it. So that's the important thing here is the action, the action of it. So anything else on that point?
No, not really. I mean, we talked about it before. Aureo talked about it too with spouses. Like you and I could team up and we could do some things and we could be Vonu together. But if you were married or had a girlfriend that wasn't necessarily 100% into the lifestyle, wasn't keen on the lifestyle, wasn't really interested in doing it, you and I interacting would open me to coercion, right? Yeah. It would open me to, it would make me vulnerable to coercion, because she could say something or she could go to the cops, or she could talk to somebody, and then that person could go to the police or to the bloods or whatever.
And that's really where things get dicey, is with the free mates, or even worse if it's a legal marriage. Things can get dicey. And there's some vindictive relationships, and if you're wilderness Vonuing with a part, well, I guess that wouldn't be too big of a deal. Well, actually, yes, it would if she knew all 5 of your wilderness Vonu spots, and she wanted to get back at you for some reason. Not good.
Caches and. Yeah. Knew where your Tazes were, and
yeah,
knew where the garage was, where you had that underground apartment, and yeah.
Yeah. So yes, working with others is oftentimes necessary, but and interacting with others is oftentimes necessary. But man, you've got to be careful. You have to, especially considering as far as Vonu, the Servile Society being the main enemy of Venuans. Um, yeah, got to be careful. Got to do all your vetting, practice security culture, and make damn sure you know who you're working with. So, yeah, good point. Good point. Anything else there?
No, I'm good. Let's move.
Okay, so this next one, unlike prepping and survivalism, Vonu is a lifestyle. Like I said, we've talked about this quite a few times before, but it keeps popping up. This is something that Rayo addressed a few times in his writings too. But there's this idea, and actually Sam Conklin is one that propagated this myth, is that Venuans are just retreatists. It's the same thing as preppers and survivalists, and Venuans are all just retreatists, and that's it. And that's not true, because Vonu is not survivalism. Survivalism and prepping is, if this happens, then I will do that. Well, that's not what Vonu is. Vonu is about realizing that okay, the state and other courses exist today, and I need to become as invulnerable as I can be. And if you're Rayo, you might be worried about a nuclear war or something, and maybe that's something that Venuans needs to take into consideration now. I don't know, but that was just something else he defended against. He wrote about it. Maybe he was a little over concerned by it, but I mean, these are nation states, right? You really never know. But anyways, to the point, yeah, Vonu and prepping and survivalism are completely different things. Survivalism and prepping, they do play a part in Vonu. They can make you more invulnerable to coercion, like if you have food storage or water storage, or if you have a couple Vonu home bases you can go to in in certain events. I mean, those are components of Vonu, but yeah, Vonu is a lot more than that. It's a lifestyle change.
Yeah, to reiterate that, yes, Vonu is a lifestyle. It's something you live. You go out there every single day. You try to limit your coercion, through security culture and through wilderness Vonu or van nomadism or whatever else. Whereas prepping is a preparatory activity. Right, it's something that you're preparing for. Like, if X happens, I'll do Y, Z, W, R, etc. Survivalism is much the same way. It's you go out and you learn these skills in case X happens, but you don't live these skills. You might for a weekend or a week, but you go out and you do your thing for a weekend or a week, and then you come back to the Servile Society.
Yeah, and you live just the way you did beforehand. That's one thing I fear for, and this is kind of a side point, but that's one reason I promote so heavily. Well, I guess we promoted so heavily in that, and that's why we started season 3 with getting exercising those collectivist spooks and getting rid of that controlled schizophrenia. Because if you don't do that, just like with this most recent selection cycle, people who were otherwise consistent anarchists, maybe not, wholly focused on direct action or Vonu, they got drugged back into the political system because they never took that step. And with Venuans, I could see, if there's not real purpose and meaning behind the actions that you're taking, but with, I guess, behind the lifestyle change that you're making, eventually it's like you might get to the point it's like, what am I doing? Like, why am I even doing this? And then, before long, back in your Servile Society job with an apartment and, a 3rd-story apartment in Chicago, and you're vulnerable to coercion again. And Vonu wasn't a lifestyle change for you. It was just, I guess, this little foray into a different lifestyle for a short amount of time, or whatever amount of time it is. So, yeah. So much like, back to the point. So much like survivalists and preppers, there's not a lifestyle change there. It's they may go and they may do they may, I don't know, hike the Appalachian Trail or something and do that, or they may have like one really survivalist sort of thing they do a year, and then but the rest of it is it's not a lifestyle change, unfortunately. So
no. Prepping and survivalism can be an aspect of Vonu, if whatever aspect you choose to live, whether it be a van or wilderness or even sailboating. Having food stored, having medical supplies, having water stored, that's prepping. That can be an aspect of Vonu, and it can be part of your Vonu strategy. Same with survivalism.
It kind of needs to be, at least to a certain extent. Yeah. Depending upon what lifestyle. For van nomadism, I probably have at least 2 weeks of storable food on me at all times. Obviously, as compact as possible. For minimal sailboating, I definitely would. If you get stranded out on an island or something, you'd probably want to have some food stores there, to wait for help to come. If you're pursuing wilderness Vonu, I mean, you just have supply caches all over the place. So that's that's kind of that. So yeah, I think with most any Vonu lifestyle, Vonuing in cities, I think whatever you're able to do as far as food stores, I think is a good idea, even if it doesn't come to. Even if it doesn't come to some survivalist or prepping scenario, and this is a point that Kyle brought up when we did the survivalism episode in season 2. But what if you lose your job and you don't have money for food for a month? Well, if you've got a couple months of storable food, well, you're in a really good position. You won't starve.
Look at the flooding right now in Pennsylvania, right? That is a shit hit the fan scenario. That is a SHTF scenario. That is an aspect that you should prep for. You should prep for that, for losing your job, for breaking your leg, right? You break your leg, you're out of work for 6 months. Well, you can't get to the store, So yeah, prepping is a precautionary tale. Survivalism is kind of it's a part-time primitive thing.
Kind of a doom porn thing.
Yeah, where Vonu is an actual livable lifestyle. It's what you do. It's not something you worry about in the future. It's not something you watch the weather forecast for every single day. It's not like you get text alerts for Yellowstone. If you're living in a van in Arizona. So
yeah, exactly. So I think we hammered that one, hard enough again for at least this episode. But all right, this next one. This was your suggestion, and I think this is a really good one to kind of end out on, because when we're talking about these lifestyle changes, whether it's van nomadism, minimal sailboating, intentional communities, Vonuing in cities, whatever it is, going from someone who just first heard of Vonu, maybe you just read Vonu the Search for Personal Freedom, maybe when the book's out, maybe you read or if you're a patron of ours, patreon.com/Vonu, maybe you read my book, and you looked at these lifestyle changes and you said, man, I'm new to this entire thing, and I'm working 40 hours a week in a Servile Society job. I've got some land investments. I've got XYZ. I don't know, there's no way it's going to be impossible to get to that point. It's important to remember that Vonu is not an all or nothing thing. As long as you're making steps to make yourself more invulnerable to coercion, you are a Vonuan. Now, obviously, it's not just in some ways that would make everyone a Vonuan, right? Just trying to avoid coercion, but it's a lifestyle change. So if you're taking steps every single day, if let's say maybe you realize that having 2 weeks of food storage is a good idea. So you buy you spend $20 on that for some storable food. That's a small step. That's a small step forward, and you continue making those small steps. So if you're wanting to live in a van,
FEMA itself says 10 days.
10 days.
10 days is what FEMA says. Minimum 10 days.
That's weak.
Yeah. Well, it's the government, so.
Oh, that's right. Just give them 10 days and they'll come and save you. Yeah, just 10 days. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. So the idea is small steps forward. So you learn about all of the surveillance state stuff, and you say, man, I need to start using encryption. I'm going to start using cryptocurrencies, not debit cards and credit cards. The surveillance state's bad. I need to try to get some privacy back and make myself more invulnerable to coercion. That's something you could do if you're planning on living in a van, or I guess pursuing any lifestyle change. Even just putting together a frugality budget and exercising that and saving money, intensive saving towards financial independence. If you're going to be pursuing minimal sailboating, maybe sign up for some sailing lessons, or go hitch sailing at some time. Maybe take a few weeks or a month off work, and find someone's boat to hop on, and go on a little trip. And by the way, it's hitchhiking on boats is what it is, but there's actually safe ways to do this. There are some fascist boat groups. I think the group is called Hitch Sailing, but a lot of those people know each other. They've sailed together, and they can vouch for the credibility. They can vouch for the character of the individuals. So there's safe ways to do this. There really are. It's not as sketchy as people might think.
They're not all like Captain Ron, you guys. It's okay.
No. No, these are people who either they're retired or they realized that the servile society life was bullshit and they didn't want to do it, so they bought a boat. Even if they aren't Vonuans, they realized that they wanted more, and they went for it. So a lot of these folks are very much similar. Are very much Vonuans in their own way, I guess you could say. I guess even something so minimal, and this is what I've been meaning to do this for. I'd meant to do this for a while, but even just something as minuscule as removing the bumper stickers from your car. I had a few, pretty anti-political ones on there for a couple of years, and I meant to take them off, but I just never did. And before I started my road trip last month, I said, "Yeah, I'm going to take care of that."
The nail that sticks out gets hammered.
Yeah. So, even like just small things, guys. Like these sound minuscule, but when you pile a bunch of small things on, you make real steps towards pursuing Vonu, towards whatever lifestyle change you're looking to do. And it gets you in a routine of this lifestyle of really thinking about what steps you can take to make yourself more invulnerable to coercion, and it's these things add up. When you're at the very beginning, it can seem like a long way, and it still kind of seems a long way for van nomadism for me. But it seems like a long ways out there. But just keep working and grinding, and if freedom really matters to you, if freedom really matters to you, then there's a Vonu lifestyle that can suit it. So what do you got, man?
I think one of the things that a lot of people they misinterpret it, as you said earlier is they get this idea of Vonu being an all or nothing, right? It's not like homesteading, right? You're not dropped off in the woods with an axe and a saw and like good luck. Right? That's not what Vonu is. Vonu is a step. Because it is an entire. It's not only a lifestyle change; it's a personality change. You got to change your mindset out of the servile society and into limiting your vulnerability to coercion. You have to practice that, right? It's not something that you just flip a switch and do. So like little things like using Signal. To communicate using PGP on your emails, VPNs when you use the internet. Stop using debit and credit cards. Start using cash, right? Debit and credit cards are trackable. Those little cards that like Safeway and Rite Aid give you, stop fucking using them because they're tracking you too.
Oh yeah,
they're tracking your purchases and all that other stuff. Get off of Google. Stop using Google. Stop using Firefox. Don't use or stop using Chrome. Little things. It really is. Little things add up to a lot. Stop helping the state track you. Stop helping the state expose you to vulnerability. And then you could take it a step further than that when you stop eating fast food, right? Start stockpiling a little bit of food, a little bit of money, a little bit of water, a little bit of medical supplies. Learn a skill that gets you a little bit off the grid, start doing
or just learn a skill like coding or developing or website design or whatever it may be that you could maybe turn into a location independent job.
Yeah, and absolutely that you can a brick and mortar building, and it takes steps. Every step, every single step that you take towards limiting your vulnerability to coercion is a step in a positive direction. That is all Vonu. That is all Vonu. Every single one of those steps is a Vonu activity. You are a Vonuan if you are taking actions. So it's not, you don't have to dive in head first, right? I mean, you don't you're not blindfold, right? You're not being dropped off in the middle of nowhere. Dip your toe, then go up to your ankle, and then just slowly work your way into the pool.
Right. Yeah, that's the most realistic path. But I mean, there are folks, man, that find out about Vonu or they find out about a lifestyle change and they just do it. And some of that is due to the fact that they have nothing stopping them. All they had was a job and a house. They sell their house and they go they move into their van or whatever the scenario is. There are folks that do that and can do it, but for a lot of folks it's unrealistic. And so yeah, we don't focus on that too much because you don't need any more motivation from us, or you don't need. You might come back to us down the road if you run into some any issues, but you're already there. You're already there, man. Go for it. Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
So let me see if there's. I guess one other thing I'd recommend there is for folks who just found out about Vonu. So I'd recommend a clear-cut goal in mind. So obviously you're taking all these small steps, but what are you working towards? I mean, what lifestyle lifestyle do you want? And then because that determines a lot of things: how much money you'll need, how much money you'll need to live, how much investment capital, what you'll be living in, how you can fortify your Vonu home base. All of those sorts of things definitely do depend upon what lifestyle changes you decide to pursue. So that's all I got right there, man. What do you have?
Ditto.
Nothing.
Just
okay.
Ditto everything you just said. It is. You cannot have a servile society mind while trying to live a Vonu lifestyle. You will make yourself miserable. You will hate it, and you will go back to being a slave of the state. You have to even. I would even argue that the mentality change, the mindset change, is more important than the physical change. Because once
the mental is what holds you, what really holds you back.
Yeah, to quote Marcus Garvey, none but ourselves can emancipate us from freedom, or emancipate us from mental slavery. So yeah, it really is up to the individual, in order for them to be free. Like I cannot make you free, you cannot make me free. But we can help each other, and we can inspire each other, just as we can inspire other individuals, and other individuals can inspire us, just as Regan Kelly has, and Caro and Jala have, and have Alma is, and
she has a hell of a life.
Yeah, we can learn from them, and use their lessons and their actions to inspire ours, and for us to make our own paths, just as others following you, and Kyle and myself and Jeremy and all these other van nomads that are popping up out of nowhere, just as people can use them as examples, and learn from them, and follow their examples, and then try their own routes, and take what works, and discard what doesn't for them. It's again, Vonu is entirely individualistic. It is up to the individual what they believe their freedom is. It is up to the individual how much freedom they want. You can go totally free and go live in a cave. If that's what you want, go do it. If that's your end goal, go do it. But that is not my end goal. That is not Shane's end goal. That is not Jeremy's.
Well, hey, man, how do you know I don't live in a cave? Kidding. Yeah.
Because there's no metal music in a cave.
That is true. Damn. Yeah. Well said. So, yeah, I guess just to reiterate the point of this episode, Vonu does not equal Rayo, and vice versa. Rayo does not equal Vonu.
Nope.
They had their own path, and we'll each have our own. Vonu does not equal 100% withdrawal from the servile society, and port export requires some interaction with the servile society until we have our own alternative economies. And someday, I hope there's no need for interaction with the servile society. That'd be awesome, wouldn't it? It'd be awesome and make everyone more invulnerable to coercion. But we can't get produce and buy all the goods and services that we need. Just in our Agora circles, or Vonu circles, or anarchist circles, and things like that. So maybe down the road we can escape that form of interaction. But then again, there would still be interaction with other people. So again, you're not working by yourself. Trading. So unlike prepping and survivalism, Vonu is a lifestyle. We touched on that, and Vonu is not an all or nothing thing. Definitely, if you want to jump off the cliff and jump into a lifestyle, thinking you can do it, go for it. If you're more like me and want to have a plan and kind of a set route, a plan and goal in mind, then small steps towards the eventual completion of that goal. But any other closing thoughts, man?
A rising tide raises all boats.
I like that quote.
Yeah, I love that quote. Thank you, Danilo.
Yeah, I included that. In my book. Had to. Had to.
Mhm.
But yeah, all right, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on. It was glad your internet cooperated. It kind of worked out.
Oh, I'm
perfect
so
timing.
happy my internet cooperated. It's about an hour long now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks, man.
Oh.
Always a good time.
Yeah, this was a really good one. This was a lot of fun. We should, we say it every time. We should do these more often, but we really should do these more often.
We need to do one before the 8th because that's when my free trial for what I'm using runs out. So we got to do one more before the 8th. So I haven't paid for one of these services yet. Maybe at some point, but yeah, I'm actually going to have to migrate. I've been using Ryan from FPRN. I've been hosting all my stuff on his server for the past 3 years, and he doesn't charge me anything, so it's free hosting. It's nice, but unfortunately, his operating system on his server or something doesn't allow his tech guy to add, the SSL certificates like the HTTPS onto websites. And Google just, I guess it was a couple days ago, if someone like searches for Liberty